They might not have been wearing the blue and white jerseys on the field, but a few Penn Staters still donned the iconic white shell blue striped helmet at the Reese Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. It's time to discuss what stood out from this past Sunday's game. Hello everybody and welcome back to Penn State Sports Night. I'm Zach Gershman, joined alongside by Tim Rogers and Ethan Ellis. Guys, while only a few Penn Staters actually participated in the game, 6 Nittany Lions, including projected first-round picks Arnold Ebiketie and Jahan Dotson, were invited to play in the game. Ethan, I'll start off with you first. What do you think the amount of invites and the quality of talent that Penn State brings to the table says about them?
Yeah, it really shows just how good of a job James Franklin and his coaching staff have done with taking these players into the program and developing them to the point where they're ready for the NFL and to the point where they're getting invited to the Senior Bowl. And it's also really going to show these high school recruits who are considering what college to go play football at. Should they go to Penn State? Well, they just had 6 players get selected to the Reese Senior Bowl, so Penn State's definitely going to go higher on their list, and it's definitely going to benefit Penn State's program as a whole.
Yeah, Ethan, I totally agree with you. I mean, Penn State has always been known for translating onto the NFL scene, right? This past year, they had 39 players in the NFL this year, and a bunch of stars, too. Saquon Barkley, I mean, although dealing with injury, same as KJ Hamler, but you got Pat Freiermuth being one of the best tight ends in the league, Mike Gesicki truly being a top 5 tight end in the league. It's one of those things, though, it does make you raise an eyebrow. You talked about James Franklin. How come they can't win it here in Happy Valley? It makes you question a little bit, but I think the Penn Staters are built for the NFL game.
And I think the interesting thing is not only are you showing the high school recruits, look what we bring to the table. Well, when you have a guy like Arnold Ebiketie who transferred from Temple and comes into this Penn State program and right away goes from a player that not many people knew about to an invite at the Reese Senior Bowl, that's a big deal. So let's go across the defensive line now to Jesse Lucetta, who did in fact play in the game. Tim, what do you think his performance in the Reese Senior Bowl? Do you think it upped his draft stock?
Absolutely. And it was a performance that he absolutely needed to do. Many mock drafts before this showed that he might not even be drafted, and if he was, 6th, 7th round. He played like he had nothing to lose, and that's exactly what you had to do in this situation. He had 2 sacks, 2 tackles for a loss, and 1 forced fumble. That is exactly what you needed to do when you're Jesse Lucetta. And I've seen on some mock drafts now, he is now in the top 4 for the 4th round, 5th round area, which is something that he wasn't even expected to be coming into this, but the Senior Bowl really projected him in that draft stock.
Yeah, one player I'm really looking at, and while he might not get actually drafted, he still came and played his heart out in the Senior Bowl, and that's Jordan Stout, the punter. He comes in, he pins the ball inside the 20 twice. He starts off the game with a 75-yard punt, showing basically he can play at his position, he can play it well, and he's shown us that the entire time while he was at Penn State. So Jordan Stout, like I said, he's probably going to wind up being signed as an undrafted free agent, but he definitely gave himself a spot in the NFL, maybe even as a starter with what he did in the Senior Bowl.
And the punter before him, Blake Gilligan, who punted here at Penn State, went undrafted as well, yet is a stud for the New Orleans Saints, punting the ball there. And I mean, Jesse Lucetta, as you mentioned, he was not projected to even be drafted, and to see how much he's grown just by switching from the linebacker position to the defensive line is something that Penn State recruits, if you're looking at this team, that's something to keep an eye on. The fact that you're able to switch a player out of his position, put him in another spot, and ultimately lead him to success. But speaking of success, there are a lot of players that had a successful performance at the Senior Bowl. Let's talk from a wider perspective, a broader perspective. Let's put on our NFL scout hat. Who's going to go back home? Which NFL teams are going to go back home? They're going to see this guy from the Senior Bowl, circle his name on the list, and tell their teams, listen, we have to bring in this guy. Who do you think that guy is going to be, Tim?
Well, I think me and Ethan are going to have a nice little debate about this, but I think that, in my opinion, Kenny Pickett is going to be the best and first quarterback out of this draft class after the Senior Bowl performance. 6 for 6, 89 yards and a touchdown. He looked like a professional. To me, I think Washington is going to be the first team that takes a quarterback. Maybe Carolina, because, I mean, we don't know with Sam Darnold, Sweet Sammy D, as I like to call him. We don't know if he's going to be able to keep performing at that level, and we all know that Cam Newton is not the guy anymore. So he could be going to Carolina, but look, Kenny Pickett just showed out, and he showed his arm talent, which is something that was always talked about, but he really never showed it. For this, the accuracy and the way that he threw the ball, that's something that's going to propel him into many draft boards.
Yeah, and the guy I'm looking at is Malik Willis, who is definitely going to give Kenny Pickett some competition for that first quarterback taken off the board in the NFL draft. He didn't have as great of a passing game as I wanted him to. Only goes 2 for 4 for 11 yards, but he showed that he can run the ball. He rushed for 54 yards total, including a 27-yard run. So while he's obviously not going to be taken first overall, he's definitely going to give Kenny Pickett some competition for that first overall quarterback pick. And it's going to be interesting to see which NFL teams want to take Malik Willis, who is obviously a dual threat quarterback and can obviously throw the ball. He had a 74-mile-an-hour pass at the Senior Bowl, which was the fastest pass among all quarterbacks. So it's going to be interesting to see which NFL team can take Malik Willis and take this dual threat quarterback into their team.
Well, the NFL draft is only 80 days away, but every day is a day closer to them hearing their name called by Roger Goodell and turning dreams into reality. That'll do it here on Penn State Sports Night. So for Tim Rogers and Ethan Ellis, I'm Zach Gershman. We'll see you next time. Hey everybody, thank you for tuning into this edition of Penn State Sports Night. We hope you liked that segment.
And we're sure there's other Penn State Sports Night segments that you are going to love as well. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content.
And check us out on social media for updates and behind-the-scenes clips and pics. Follow us on Twitter at PSSN and on Instagram at PSU Sports Night to keep up with all the action.
For all of us here at the Belisari Media Center, we are
Penn State Sports Night.